So my name is Matt Gonzales. I'm Ralph Nader's running mate. It's good to be in Texas despite the weather. I'm quite accustomed to it. I grew up in South Texas, McAllen, Texas. And Ralph is just outside here. He'll be joining us in a few minutes. I wanted to just start out by saying a few things, which is, politically speaking, we have endeavored to try to raise some issues that the other candidates are not talking about. Issues like single-payer health care. We've been talking about trying to reform the Taft-Hartley law. We've been talking about the need for majority elections in this country, the need to change corporate power in this country, to change corporate personhood, and of course to ending the war in Iraq. These are some of the cornerstones of our political effort this year. It's also important to say that despite much of the criticism that you will sometimes hear of our candidacy on these particular issues, we have majority support. It is the will of the majority of the people of this country that we have these kinds of reforms that we're working towards. I want to speak specifically about the issue of election reform because it's an issue that's dear to my heart and something I worked on while I was the president of the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco. We decide presidential contests in this country by allowing the winner not to have a majority of the vote. I mean, we, about 1/3 of the time, allow the so-called winner, that we call the winner, not to have a majority of the vote. And it's not something that just happened in 2000 when Bush beat Gore, but it's something that has been recurring over and over again. In 8 of the last 24 presidential contests, we have seen this phenomena happen. And ironically, it has favored the Democrats more often than it's favored the Republicans. Woodrow Wilson won both his contests without a majority of the vote. Truman, Kennedy, Bill Clinton won both of his contests without a majority of the vote. And so that's something that we very much are calling for. We're trying to get people focused on this idea that we can change how politics is done in this country so that we can open up the political discourse and not be scared about voting for a candidate that we truly believe in. As many of you know, there are very difficult ballot access laws as they relate to Texas. To get on the ballot in this state, the window of opportunity to get on the ballot officially is a narrow window, and it happens relatively early in the presidential cycle. I have read some of the news reports that try to counter the idea of how difficult it is by pointing to other political candidates who have been able to obtain ballot status by signature gathering. One is, of course, Kinky Friedman, who was able to get on the ballot and run for governor. But there are a couple of things that you should be very aware of. To get on the ballot as a presidential candidate, you cannot obtain a signature from somebody who voted in the primary. That means 4 million Texans are not even eligible to sign a petition that we would have circulated to get on the ballot that way. And in the case of trying to obtain ballot status in a governor's contest, that's 2/3 the threshold of what you need to run for president. That's under 50,000 votes, and to run for president you need just under 75,000 valid signatures. Despite that, Mr. Nader and I are committed to a 50-state campaign to try to get around the country and to visit all the contests, not just the ones in play with a blue versus red state phenomena. And tonight when I speak, I'm going to be emphasizing that it's important that as people make a choice politically, that they not just be drawn into rhetoric of change. I think it is quite shocking, frankly, that anybody could continue to promote a change message who has voted for the Patriot Act, voted for the recent FISA bill that granted immunity to telecom companies that spied on American citizens on behalf of our White House. I think it really challenges, and it would be too generous of us to say that a candidate that has voted for every war appropriation is somehow going to change the culture of Washington and usher in a new type of politics. For that reason, our campaign is trying to discuss issues and trying to educate voters about the reality that's out there that confronts them. And if you want to vote for another candidate, naturally you're welcome to do so, but we ask that everyone respect those voters that want to vote Nader Gonzales. And we think that we're in a long tradition of political efforts in this country to create real change and meaningful change. So thank you very much. Is Ralph ready to come in?
When and where are the campaign's finances being disclosed?
The Nader campaign?
I just did a very brief research before I came out. I couldn't find it, but I figured maybe you had. And
yeah, I'm sure that it's quite transparent, and we can put you in contact with somebody that can get you that.
I'll put you with Matt.
Okay, that'll be fine.
Yeah, there's a fellow, Matt Zawiski, that can probably get that to you.
Okay.
You have a question?
Between Mr. Nader, Cynthia McKinney and Bob Barr, we've got 3 candidates who look like they're going to hold reasonable numbers and aren't from the traditional mainstream. Party-wide, why do you think this year has pushed up so many presidential candidates?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think it's been a recurring phenomena in our country's history that you get these currents of what we call alternative political possibilities. Certainly in the Republican primary, I think Ron Paul represented that. I think Kucinich represented something that was happening in the Democratic Party. And I think those disaffected voters are not quite ready just to go back into the fold and pretend that everything is okay. And I think some of the issues that Ron Paul raised have not been incorporated in the mainstream Republican message. And I think many Kucinich voters and Nader supporters in particular, and McKinney supporters, are quite doubtful of the commitment that the Democratic Party is making to ending the war. In my hometown of San Francisco, I would cite the example of Nancy Pelosi, who said that if she became the speaker, she would end the war. And it's something I'll speak about tonight. Military appropriations went up by $50 billion the year that she was first speaker. And in this year, I think it's gone up another $10 billion. So I think some people have given up and are ready for something else. Mr. Nader, Ralph Nader.
Thank you very much, Matt Gonzales, and thank you for coming. Okay. There's a form of political slavery in this country where millions of Americans are locked in a corrupt two-party system that basically tells them you got to choose only between the Republican and Democrat, no matter how bad each has become. The Nader Gonzales ticket is determined to break the grip of the two-party duopoly on American politics and the consistent determination by these two parties to let our governments be hijacked by giant corporations who turn government against their own people. We propose to do this by campaigning in 50 states, by demonstrating that the redirections for our country are supported by a majority of the American people, unlike the positions on health care, living wage, energy, bloated, wasteful military budget, grotesque tax system that are associated with the Democrats and Republican parties and their nominees, Barack Obama and John McCain. On our website, votenader.org, we have a on the table, off the table list of redirections that you can see for yourself and ask yourself, why, if the majority of the American people have been for years for full Medicare for all, for a decent living wage, for shifting the tax burden away from working folk to the corporations and the super rich who do not pay their fair share of taxes, for not getting involved in criminal foreign military adventures, why are the two parties even being considered for support when they represent just the opposite on those key positions and many others? Political slavery comes in many forms.